Okay, so throughout the years of my studying, especially when it comes to SRE sex trafficking, I have seen that a lot of it revolved around California. And of course, there's other states that are hotspots, but California is one of the big hotspots because the elites that are into that. Because I do want people to know that the quote unquote average citizens, they're into this stuff too. It's not even just an elite thing. Because people like that, like only elites are pedophiles. But anyway, the elites that are into it, a lot of them live in places like Hollywood. And then there's the different ritual grounds that are in California in the wooded areas like the Bohemian Grove, which that's old news. And there are people that said that they stopped doing rituals at the Bohemian Grove because too many people knew about the area. But apparently they do still do stuff there. But anyway, I had decided to just visit California for myself to see how it is, and I noticed even more. So I guess one of the first things I realized is that they're already in the predicament to accept the beast religion or the one world religion. And it makes sense because the hippie movement, a lot of the hippie movement was here. And not to mention the serpent seed people that ran the slave trades and all that. They started to come over to the West Coast even before the gold rush thing. And I believe anyway, because there's really nothing that says this, but from what I've researched, it really seems like they came over to the West Coast and established their businesses, like the ones in Silicon Valley, which I heard are moving to Texas. They established those with the money that they made off the slave trades, and it's already been said that like some of these Hollywood actors, a lot of their wealth actually came from the slave trade, and it makes sense. But anyway, that's kind of a side thing. But anyway, the Serpent Sea people are the ones that are trying to do everything possible to get everybody prepared to worship their coming Antichrist. And they're always pushing these philosophies and theologies to confuse everybody about who's who when it comes to the whole Hebrew thing. And even who's who when it comes to who God actually is and what God actually is God, which would be Yahweh. But anyway, it makes sense that since a lot of the Serpent Sea people came to California or the West Coast in general, they would prepare the areas that they live in earlier for like the coming one world religion and the communist society and all that. And so I'm gonna get some pictures. I haven't edited them in. Hopefully I remember to do that. But one of the first things I seen when coming to California was a giant mural of the demon Ariel. That was something. Then of course the coexist stickers on the back of people's cars, which I already talked about in my part 1 video of Am I in the Beast Religion. And something else I noticed is that there's a lot of Catholic churches everywhere. In fact, if there is any church at all, it's going to be a Catholic church. And that's something else that I noticed, which was like the second major thing I noticed in California. Well, no, that was the third one. The second major one, other than the demon Marine Kingdom murals everywhere. Not murals. Oh my gosh. But the second thing was that there's a lot of occult or witchcraft stores. And I mean, that's kind of in like a lot of places, because a lot of places these days have crystal stores, but it's like, it's not even just crystal stores, it's deeper stuff than that. It's like MK Ultra, Alice in the Wonderland type occult stores where you can go and buy books, and they have the black and white Masonic checkerboard tiles on the floor of the stores and stuff like that. And that's like deep stuff. And I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, but back to the Catholic Church thing. So something I noticed with that is that since the pagan Roman Catholic Church is the beast religion, or at least the universal religion, because everybody's not just gonna like become Catholics, but the Catholic Church is there to push this everybody's really worshiping the same God narrative. And if you talk to the Catholics, you'll notice that this is what they believe. When you get in arguments with Catholics, like I kind of just did a couple minutes ago, they'll start saying, well, we're not pagans and everybody's really worshiping the same God anyway, and all that stuff. And you can tell that they don't read the Bible, which Catholics are taught not to read the Bible. Honestly, with all the doctrines the devils that have been led into the church throughout the years, kind of everybody's been taught to not read their Bible at this point. But the Catholics definitely, because the leaders of the Catholic Church were the ones who ran around burning Bibles and people who had Bible scriptures, and they funded the slave trade of the Hebrews and all that. And what was I about to say? Oh dang, my flash is on. But I'm trying to think, what was I about to... Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. Another thing is that they were always over the Bible, really. I mean, the Catholics and the Egyptians, the ones that were like kind of in the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud mixed with Freemasonry, they were basically trying to mix the faith, well, they did mix the faith of the Yahudim with the occult. And that's what Roman Catholicism was all about. And that's why, just like I said in my explaining the serpent seed video, these are the same people that Jesus and Paul were always calling out, which was the people who were claiming to be in Yahudaism or claiming to be Hebrews and weren't, which were going along with the Romans and taking control over the Bible, and who could learn how to read, just like they did in Europe. They wouldn't let people know how to read because they didn't want people reading the Bible. And it's like the Catholic Church has just always been over this stuff pretty much. And before they were calling themselves Catholic, the Romans, and of course the Freemasons, which would be like the Egyptians, the Sadducees and the Pharisees, they've always been trying to confuse people about the faith of the Yahudim and actually worshiping God versus just being religious or being in some weird mix with witchcraft and the occult. But yeah. Okay, I think I remember what I was going to say now, because it wasn't even that. But it was like, since there's a lot of Catholic churches around, and that's really the only churches you'll see around here in Cali, it makes sense that the Catholic churches were the ones like helping people get into this brainwashed mindset to accept the beast religion, since the Catholic churches are telling people that everybody's just worshiping the same God and that you could be transgender and all that and still believe. And they have pride flags on the Catholic churches, which of course makes sense, because since the Catholic Church also worships Baphomet, in the height of Baphomet worship, really the height of paganism or Luciferianism in general, is child abuse. The Catholic Church has always been known for turning people out and traumatizing kids and making them gender confused and all that stuff. So it makes sense that they allow it, since they're the ones turning the kids out. And I'm trying to think of what else to say. But yeah, so this being California pretty much is like a smelting pot of religions. And people around here, you'll notice that they're in Hinduism and New Age, and they're Catholic, and then they practice witchcraft, and then they say they're a magician, and they have chakra stuff all throughout their house. But then they say they believe in God, which of course when people say God, that could really mean anybody, because that's not even a name, that's a title. So they've already been in this melting pot of religions for years now. Like, a lot of the stuff that's going on in Cali and has been going on since, even before the 80s, when it comes to the push of the one world order and one world religion only even recently got to the East Coast in like 2016 and it's still slowly creeping into the East Coast. I'm trying to think of something else to say. I know like the whole rock music agenda that was really pushed in the West Coast too. I mean, even the gangster rap was, because the gangster rap actually came from the West Coast and moved over to the East. So music, of course, was a big psyop to put spells on people, and there was a lot of brainwashing in that. But I noticed that like the same thing gangster rap did to the Hebrew communities or melanated people in general is pretty much the same thing that rock music did with the Caucasian kids. It had them going into being emo and claiming they were Satanist and going into depression because of spells and the music and claiming that they were doing witchcraft, and then they would get into Dungeons and Dragons and start studying Aleister Crowley all because of rock music. And I mean, that's pretty much the same thing gangster rap did for Hebrew and melanated communities, because I mean, it promoted genocide. I mean, killing people, that's demon worship. And eventually they just started straight out saying that they sold their soul, and the rappers started saying that they were the devil or were demon worshippers. I mean, it did the same thing on both ends, but of course, due to the whole racial division agenda, the divide and conquer mess, white supremacists are always trying to act like the music only had an effect on quote unquote black people and Mexicans, and they try to act like the whole music industry isn't owned by the Serpent Seed people that have pushed agendas on everyone. And really, there are spells in certain music that really gets to certain people. Like a lot of the spells in hip hop really get to the souls and really brainwash and affect traumatized people, especially people with the trauma from not having a dad. That's who it really, really gets to. Because, of course, hip hop as a whole, at least once they got into the gangster stuff and stuff similar to that, really was spells that attract traumatized people, like people with trauma from slavery and broken family systems. But really the fatherless thing. And that's why, honestly, you'll notice that even white kids with the same no father trauma will get into the gangster rap stuff, and it'll affect them too. That's why having family systems in order is really something that needs to be fixed in Hebrew communities and really all communities, because of course the start of perversion pretty much starts there, to be honest. Because the thing is, if the dad isn't there, or if the dad isn't caring for the kids, then everything pretty much goes downhill from there. And then if both the parents are messed up, or even just one, or one isn't there, that's not how God created the family system to be. And when things aren't how they were created to be, and they start to change into something else, that's the definition of perversion. And that's why you may notice that these are the family systems that create these traumatized kids that go into transgenderism and stuff, because I mean, the family system was perverse and it created people who went into perversion and confusion and stuff. But yeah, probably should have wrote a script before I did this so I could have stayed more on topic. But I just wanted to mention how, since I've been in Cali, I noticed that like they've already been in the beast religion for years, and it's like you really can't even talk to people. In fact, I know something else I forgot to say. I forgot to say that they're into Hinduism, they're in the Catholic, they're in the New Age and the occult and Thelema, and they're in all this nudist sexual liberation stuff and this hippie stuff. But the only thing that they don't accept, of course, is the real gospel. So they like all this weird new church stuff with the Freemason pastors and the white theologians that confuse people about what the end times is actually about and what the Bible is actually about. In fact, people around here are saying that these pastors who are Freemasons, of course, they're not going to admit that part, but a lot of the pastors are Freemasons, which that's kind of another story. And then others went to these missionary schools. People around here are saying that the pastors tell them that the Bible was never meant to be interpreted literally and that it's just a book of poems and stuff. I really meant to mention that. So it's like, of course, people around here are down and okay with everything but the real gospel. I'm trying to think about if there's anything else I could say. Oh yeah, I know something else I could say. So a couple months back, I was talking to this Catholic dude, and we had gotten to this whole argument because I had asked how he was a magician if he says that he's following Christ, because I was basically telling him that like Catholic is just, it's really just a kind of just like how what Christianity turned into, a pagan white supremacist hijacking of the original faith of the Yahudim. And of course he went into the whole thing about how he wouldn't even say exactly what real Hebrews what ethnicity or what they would look like or what they would actually be, but he was saying that they were Aramaic, which I don't know about that. From what I remember, some of the people that the Hebrews were fighting in like the Old Testament were the Aramaic people, so that really threw me off. But anyway, he was like, I mean, of course, really, black people and Mexicans could never be the Hebrews because the real Hebrews were Aramaic, and I'm not really a magician. I'm just good at making it look like I do magic. And he basically on this stand thing where he will like do different magic tricks, and there were different occult books and books on magic and witchcraft that he was selling and all that. And of course, Catholics would be like this because, I mean, voodoo is Catholic. And that's something a lot of people don't realize, especially the Hebrews that are like falling for this stuff that the Hamite Africans who put us on the boat are always pushing, which is that our original religion was voodoo, even though to be truthfully honest, when it comes to all these different like spiritual beliefs that people have, a lot of it actually came from fear of the Anunnaki / fallen angels and their hybrid creatures. Because if you like look into the stuff that the Romans were going through and even other people groups, they were sacrificing people in their tribes because they were scared of the Anunnaki and the other creatures that they made. So really all these different beliefs that all worship these same demons and stuff, really all of them were forced on the people through fear anyway. But yeah, so it was, none of this stuff was really anybody's original anything except the faith of the Yahudim, because I mean Hebrews, they were founded based off of the faith because God gave them the covenant since Abraham decided to be the person to look for who the real God was, and then that's when he became the first Hebrew. But yeah, anyway, the Hamite Africans, they're always trying to tell Hebrews that our original religion was voodoo and all that. They never want to talk about the fact that voodoo is Catholic. And I don't really know if there's anything else I could say. There's just so much stuff that I've noticed since I've been in Cali. Because, like, when I was younger, I never really understood who would even go for the beast religion or the one world religion in general, or why. And then it's like once I came to Cali, I just realized a lot more, because it's like the people here are already in it. And you can tell that there's a really strong principality over all the people here, because if you try to talk to anybody about anything true, I mean, that's how a lot of Americans are, honestly. When you try to talk to them about anything true, they flip out. But especially here, when it comes to stuff about the real gospel, and it makes sense, because I mean, people have been sitting in these churches that have been infiltrated by Freemason pastors and weird doctrines and a whole bunch of religious crazy mess, to where when you try to talk to people about the real gospel and what the Bible is actually about, they feel like you're just making up something in your head. Because I mean, even if they went to church before, they most likely went to some Doctrine of the Devil church. So it's like people don't know the real Bible, basically. That's why I'm actually lucky that I wasn't somebody that was forced to go to church or something my whole life. Because honestly, I probably would have never read the Bible, and I probably wouldn't know anything about what the Bible is actually about if I was one of those people. Because the people that make the best pastors are people that grew up in a gang or something, or they used to be in a gang or sell drugs, or they used to be in the cult, stuff like that. But yeah. Anyway, back to the point. So, there's a strong principality over people here, and it's like, if you try to talk to them about about the real God and the gospel, they get mad. And you've probably seen videos of street pastors out in Cali where, like, people throw drinks on them and call the police on them, and then they'll be in jail and all that. And of course, that's going to start happening everywhere. And even in some other countries, Christian persecution has been going on for a long time now. But things are only going to get worse, of course. And honestly, it's really crazy, because it's like culture shock to me, to be honest. And of course, due to the agendas pushed with hip hop, the quote unquote black community back on the East Coast, they've slowly went into atheism and Satanism themselves throughout the years. But it's like, at one point, a lot of people in the South, at least, really, really did consider themselves Christians and believers, and really didn't go for a lot of the stuff that we go for now, which is why our community has just fallen into shambles more and more. But it's still culture shock, because the West Coast is just, and I mean, like I keep saying, they're already here and they've been here. And it makes sense, because a lot of the Serpent Seed people live here, and they're going to push their philosophies. But yeah, so pretty much everything that I heard about California throughout the years is true. And in fact, this worse than I thought it would be. And of course, there are still some people left who could be a remnant and still accept, like, the real gospel and all that. But it's like, it's just crazy how many people are already trapped in this one world religion ideology, because it's like the Antichrist isn't even here yet, or at least he hasn't came onto the world stage anywhere. He hasn't even came onto the world stage and started proclaiming to be God yet, and people are already so deep into this one world religion. Everybody's really worshiping the same gods, and we're arguing over the same God, just the story told by different people. It's honestly crazy. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say.